The NHL and the NHL players are going back to the Olympics. What's going on? When are they going? How are they going? Is there a way to get opt out? We'll have all those questions and more right now on Teal Town Live. Good morning, everyone. It is September 3rd, 2021. We all hope you're doing well, and welcome to Teal Town Live. This is your live interactive Sharks show. We do this whenever news breaks or after Sharks games. So if you want to be part of the show, here's how you do it. Chat with us and fellow Sharks fans on the page or the app. And of course, follow us on our social, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify. You name it, we love it. And of course, hit us up on our Discord and find everything at tealtownusa.com. And with that, I say good morning to you, each and all of you. I am Erik Kuhre. You can always find me at PuckGuy14 on the Twitter and the Instagram. Of course, check us out on all of our social media platforms. We appreciate it very well. So this got us kind of by surprise. We knew that something was going to happen with the Olympics. Something was bound to come up. You know, we had heard kind of like these arbitrary deadlines and such, kind of expecting like late August for something to come out, and sure enough, it did. But it took a few more days. So what's the gist of it? Well, here's what it is. The NHL and the NHLPA, along with the International Ice Hockey Federation and the IOC, have come to an agreement. The NHL will break February 3rd to the 22nd for players to go to the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing, China. Now, the Winter Olympics are supposed to be taking place from February 4th to the 20th. Now, what we've been hearing lately in the last hour or so is that the hockey tournament will begin on February 9th. So this tournament's going to be pretty quick, so we'll see about all of that. And of course, the NHL All-Star Weekend just happens to be February 4th and 5th in Las Vegas. So players that are going to Beijing will leave on the 6th, directly from Vegas. 12 national teams will participate, divided up by 3 groups, including the host country, China, along with Latvia, Slovakia, and Denmark, who qualified last week in their qualifying tournaments to get in. For us, this is a Shark-centric podcast, so we'll kind of lean towards talking about the Sharks just a scotch a little bit. And of course, I see in the chat you want to talk about Hertl. We'll get to that in a little bit. But first, the Sharks' last game before the break is February 1st at Tampa, and they'll return to the ice on the 23rd when they play the Islanders at home. So that's kind of where we're looking at right now. Now, the gist of this is, a lot of things are going on here. This is not going to be an easy task. This isn't a slam dunk either, folks. To say that this is a done deal is not exactly off. There's a lot that went through this, and according to Emily Kaplan and Greg Wyshynski from ESPN.com, the players really wanted this, and the NHL, even went on to say, and it was a little interesting how it came out that or was the quote here? I think from Bill Daly that they wanted they wanted to get back to the Olympics, as plain and simple. That yes, the World Cup was great and all, but Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly said, "We understand how passionately NHL players feel about representing and competing for their countries. We were very pleased, and we were able to conclude arrangements that will allow them to resume best-on-best competition on the Olympic stage." Don't think they're not thinking about trying to get a World Cup of hockey in the next few years or so. I think that's the case. And let's be honest here. While the World Cup of hockey was fun and exciting, yeah, the North American and the Team Europe teams were a little of the weirdness of it all. But I mean, at the same time, you had Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid playing on an international stage together, and that looks like that's going to be the only time they'll be able to do that. But you look at what's going on. This is the 6th time that the NHL players will be participating in the Olympic Games tournament, starting off in 98 in Nagano, which was also the same games that women's ice hockey got to play in. And we'll get to the women's worlds in a little bit there, but my goodness. I mean, you can almost kind of have an argument as to which would be the better tournament. I mean, yes, USA and Canada in the women's bracket keep clashing, but the rest of the nations are slowly coming up. But, they played in 98 in Nagano, 2002 Salt Lake City, 2006 in Torino, and of course Vancouver in 2010 with that crazy overtime gold medal game where frickin' Sidney Crosby got the gold medal. That's beside the point. And then of course Sochi in 2014. They skipped out on Pyeongchang, let's be honest here, for marketing reasons, and not exactly the arrangements were, they weren't exactly, the best for the NHL. And the NHL still isn't crazy about the idea of sending players to the Olympics. It negotiated, with the players and we have a good faith. But also that's in the collective bargaining agreement that the league signed on with the players, that it allows for participation in the Olympics in 2022 and 2026. So, there's that. The other thing that NHL wanted was an expanded media and advertising rights. According to ESPN.com, in a February 2020 meeting, the NHL outlined some of the things it wanted. It wanted logos and advertisements featured in Olympic Games, the ability to use Olympic highlights on NHL Network or NHL.com to help promote the game. And they thought that it was going to happen. But of course, things have changed since February 2020. Obviously, the NHL is no longer on NBC, which is a Olympic broadcast partner. And the league never got those rights, and the IOC and the IIHF didn't have an appetite to make more concessions to the league. I mean, they're already picking up the travel costs and such, and if the players are allowed to have guests, the IIHF and the IOC are going to cover those costs as well, and the insurance for NHL players. We've seen it happen before. Dominik Hasek goes down with an injury and was out for a while. John Tavares, I think, was in 2014, if I'm not mistaken. He was out for a bit. But the other thing too, so yeah, they don't get that exposure bonus. They're going to have to work around that as usual. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets a little sticky. Okay? All players who participate in the Olympics will be required to take the COVID vaccine. However, there could be some very limited exemptions on a case-by-case basis. We've heard these before, like with medical and religious, choices, to say the least. There are sources that say an overwhelming majority of NHL players are already vaccinated. So it's quite interesting how this is going to go down. But like I said, this isn't a done deal. And getting back to the COVID, issues, there's a couple of things that the NHL can do and opt out of this. First things first, if COVID conditions worsen or otherwise pose a threat to the health of the safety of the players, they can pull out. Another reason for the NHL and the NHLPA to pull out is if the season is affected by game cancellations because of COVID-19 issues. If the league feels like it needs to use the Olympic break to make up games to get a full season in, recoup that almighty HRR or hockey related revenue, they're going to do it. They can exercise that clause. It's a little vague, but there's some word that the opt-out deadline is sometime in, right after the first of the year. So that's something to watch for. I mean, that's the case. So, like I said, the Olympic break is scheduled from February 3rd to the 22nd. Of course, All-Star Weekend, which just happens to be also Pro Bowl weekend in Las Vegas. Boy, how how did they plan that on? All right. We'll be in Las Vegas. And that was going to happen without the Olympics or not. Olympians who attend All-Star Weekend will leave directly from Vegas that day, or that Sunday, February 6th. There is an unreleased alternate schedule prepared if for some reason the players don't end up going. Now, we mentioned in 2016, the last time that the best on best tournament was in the World Cup of Hockey. Now, Team North America with Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews, yeah, that was great. But there's something about the Olympics. There really is. And these players were passionate to get through it, to do this. Connor McDavid was looking, is going to play in his first Olympics. Like, seriously. Austin Matthews. Some of these younger guys are going to get their first shot at it. Then there's guys like maybe Sidney Crosby or Alexander Ovechkin and remember, Ovi was really vocal about missing the 2018 games and almost skipped out on the Capitals to play in it. But at the same time, it's the Olympics. However, there's a pandemic going on too. So there's a lot of things to go through it here. But let's get to some of the comments in the chat here. And good morning to everyone, all of you. Felix Chow. I'm cautiously optimistic about the NHL actually participating. Faulty synapse. High risk, low reward means the NHL aren't ever going to be super in favor. The monster insurance is big. Unloaded Panda. The time looks so compacted together. I wonder how many players will come back worn out. Denver Doyle, asking, maybe we should boycott. The world needs to call out China. Hank Vesuvius, Pav strapping on the shield again, and that's a great question here. As we mentioned it here. Let's continue on. For the hockey groups. The groups are already set. The last 3 spots were completed within the last week, with Slovakia, Denmark, and Latvia getting in. China is a host country. They will also participate. And unfortunately, I think they got probably the group of death in some forms. Group A is Canada, United States, silver medalist Germany from 4 years ago, and China in there. In B, the Russian Olympic athletes from, the Russian Olympic Committee, or Russia, as there's some issues with the Russian Federation in there. The Czech Republic, Switzerland, Denmark in Group B. Group C, Finland, Sweden, Slovakia, Latvia will go in. So those are what the groups are going to be. So Canada and United States definitely will be playing against each other over the tournament, which is always a big ratings get, and I'm sure that helps big time for NBC. But as for the Sharks, some potential Sharks going to Beijing here. Mario Ferraro is a maybe. He played in the World Championships not too long ago. We saw his gold medal. If you saw his, one of his more recent Youngest of Plug videos on YouTube. Erik Karlsson, I think, is pretty much a lock to play for Sweden. I think that's probably one of the more locks that you'll get from the Sharks. Nikolai Knyzhov for Russia is a possibility, depending on where you go. Tomas Hertl, and we'll get to more of what's going on with Hertl in a little bit there. Playing for the Czech Republic. He didn't play in the World Cup of Hockey in 2016 because he was recovering from that knee injury during the Stanley Cup final. Timo Meier from Switzerland. I think that's almost a lock. Latvia for Rudolf Sposlers. That's a potential. William Eklund. Now, I put him on here for a reason, and that's because I think if the players don't go, if the NHL doesn't go, and Eklund isn't up with the Sharks, there's potential for that. We saw that with John McCarthy from the San Jose Barracuda. We saw him play a little bit in Pyeongchang. Of course, I'd be remiss to not, note some players with some Bay Area ties. Joe Pavelski, could he make his final run with the U.S. Olympic team? That's a potential. Maybe he's on the third line. And of course, San Ramon native Austin Matthews from the Toronto Maple Leafs would be playing for the United States. United States could have a potential in there. And that's going to be a fun one. So you have upwards, you're definitely going to see some Sharks. You're definitely going to see some Sharks playing in the Winter Olympics. Carlson, I think, is pretty much the largest lock you'll get. I would think Timo Meier as well. And looking at some of the comments in the chat, and faulty synapse. Remember, Hall of Fame induction takes Olympic medals in consideration. That's right. Just saying. For Patrick Marleau, who's got 2 Olympic medals. 2 Olympic gold medals, I should say. Excuse me. Patrick Tyler. China's absolutely going to get embarrassed. It's going to be tough, but you know what? And there's some ties with the Sharks in China. The Sharks fielded a Chinese hockey team for a couple of years. And there's a long story to that, and I'm sure we'll get into that over the course of time before the Olympics. We'll talk about that for a little bit more. I don't think Mario Ferraro makes it. It depends on what kind of a team they want to bring in. In 2014, I didn't think Marc-Edouard Vlasic was going to go to the Olympics, but he was a shutdown defenseman. That's where potentially I could see Ferraro coming in. So that's where we put it on there. But I also want to thank Hockey Jerk for putting this list together as well. I think that was a great help, my friend. Thank you very much. Carl Hertl, Meyer, you can go Joachim Blickfeld as well. That's one I didn't even think of. And or Jerk, Balsers, Vesuvius, probably good to get a game with Canada in the group stage before elimination. Oh, come on. So that's the gist of it all. So again, the NHL and the NHLPA are going to the Olympics. I'm beyond your judgment here. If you're seeing the replay of this, hit that like that button. Make a comment down below. Tell us why you think or which Sharks should go to the Olympics. Should be an interesting one. So that's it for the Olympic portion. Now to the chaos in San Jose. It's one of those things where we've never seen so much controversy and I guess negativity in the Sharks organization in their 30 years. I think the only time would be maybe there was like a negative connotation off ice was Mark Bell's incident. Back in 2006. But everything with Evander Kane going on, everything, going on here, we all know Tomas Hertl is, fun must be always. And now sounds like, he's going to have the Denny Lemieux thing going on. Like, is he going to say, trade me right now? No, but we're getting closer and closer to training camp. Hertl becomes an unrestricted free agent after this season. Now, granted, when Doug was putting this team together, I can guarantee you, he was putting this together where right now would probably be like a $90 million salary cap. And with that being $8.5 million disappeared right now, Hertl's still on this team. But now, to basically summarize, Kane's under investigation for gambling and reportedly not liked by several teammates. Tomas Hertl doesn't know if San Jose wants him or if he wants to stay in San Jose. Marc-Edouard Vlasic saying things will explode in San Jose if they miss the playoffs the third straight season. At least we got hockey. Olympic hockey coming. Right? Like, my God. I mean, Media Day is going to be so interesting when these guys get back to camp. I mean, it's going to be beyond interesting here. But, it's just so tough to think that Tomas Hertl, who, let's be honest here, his smile can frickin' light up a room. Hell, his smile would light up my ring light that I have going on right now. But with everything that has gone down, I mean, let's be honest here. Tomas Hertl leaving San Jose would probably be the cap to it. And faulty San Jose, you have it right. The stealth rebuild is underway. The stealth rebuild is underway. Oh, I'm getting a phone call, and I'm assuming it's from AJ Strong. AJ, you with me, bud?
Yep.
All right. I'll put you on. First off, since you're just coming on, happy belated birthday, bud.
Oh, thank you, sir.
And you haven't changed anything with your picture. You're still at the ballpark, which is nice.
Nice. Love it. Love it. Hopefully we can see a sweep of the Dodgers this weekend.
Oh, hell yeah. Anyways, go ahead. Do you want to touch on Hertl or the Olympic participation first?
I don't care about the Olympic participation stuff. I really don't care. Who knows what's going to happen with the Rona and all that stuff. We have no idea what the impact could be. It's a long ways off.
And with them having till basically New Year's to decide whether or not to go. I mean, that's going to be the interesting one.
Yeah. So for me, man, have things just gone from 0 to 100 over the last week or so.
That's an understatement, right?
I mean, geez, if you're the I don't want to name anybody's name, but boy, if you're, shall we say, part of the Sharks PR department, you're really sitting here going, God, I wish these guys would shut up. You're making my life so difficult. Look, the Kane thing already kind of started things off on with a black cloud. What's going to happen? A lot of uncertainty. Then you see those comments from Vlasic. Now, to be fair, Vlasic said, look, that's personal stuff. That's Kane's going to do and go through what he's going to go through. And, Vlasic, I've said it before, has always struck me as a, no drama mama. He's just like, I don't care. I want to play. That doesn't affect me, although I do remember, if I remember correctly, I thought there was something like, as long as he shows up on time. And I was like, ooh, okay. But then to see these comments from Hertl, the thing that just really sticks out to me, first off, Vlasic saying, if we miss for the third straight year, things are going to explode. I don't understand how things are going to explode when everybody has a no movement clause and they're signed for 8,000 years. But
right.
Yeah, you've got to deal with that. But now Hertl's saying, I don't know if San Jose wants me and I don't know if I want San Jose. I mean, I don't know that this is the way that any franchise wants to begin their season or their camp.
No, I mean, this is absolute disaster, we know Sharks PR people are like, Ben Guerrero didn't have to deal with any of this crap when he was here. But
dude went to Seattle at the right time, eh?
Yeah, Yeah. But I mean, like I was prefacing before you came on here, like the only major negative connotation that happened off ice in Sharks franchise history maybe is what? Mark Bell's incident? I mean,
Oh,
there was some little
the
stuff
DUI.
here and there. Yeah, the hit and run. And there was little stuff here and there, but nothing was really out there. This one is just, I mean,
Mm.
with the Evander situation, and it's a personal situation. So,
The last time there
I
was
feel for that
this,
kid, though. I feel for
the
Kensington because, I mean, that little one is just,
yeah, it's not right. But the last time there was this much turmoil around the team was because nobody knew what happened to Marty McSorley from the broadcast.
you're,
I
you're
mean, this
right there.
is this is ridiculous. And I don't know if you caught Tim Kawakami's mailbag on the Athletic. I don't know if that dropped yesterday or this morning or whatever, but bizarrely, and I think it shocked everybody when he acknowledged the Sharks, but he
Yeah,
was
no kidding.
asked, um, about the situation with San Jose, and if they miss again, does this finally mean that Wilson is on a hot seat? Maybe Wilson is served a pink slip, what have you. It will something happen with the front office if the Sharks miss for the third straight season. And Kawakami's response on that was, to paraphrase, is that, look, no one's talked to Hasso Plattner in forever. No one knows his take on it. He could be looking at new GMs right now, or he could be like, dude, I got way more important things to worry about. Like, you guys sort it out. But he said that he would guess that the first person in line would be Junior, which, part of you goes, well, look, I mean, Junior's making a name for himself with the drafting and the development since he's been given the reins. I think most Sharks would agree on that things have seemingly gotten better since Junior has taken over that slot.
It's a fresher approach as opposed
Yes.
to Tim Burke and Joe Will and such. Yeah.
Yeah, but can you imagine the vitriol that the fan base will spit if they go from Doug Wilson at GM to Doug Wilson Jr.? I mean, I guess it saves money that you don't really have to like change any of the nameplates on the doors or anything,
Just
but
put like in a Sharpie, like a comma, JR, period, boom, done.
yeah, I mean,
But
you that would definitely save some time, but I I just don't know how this team starts off on a positive note when there's so much uncertainty and somewhat term. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, that I know a lot of this. There's also been a lot that has gone on over the last week or so
right.
where people have accused Kurz of trying to stir the pot, or they've given him crap because he's not naming his sources. Whereas other writers also say, you know, this information came from a source, and for some reason they don't catch the heat that Kurz does. But look, either way the stuff is being reported. It all started with Sarah Valley, like what, 4 months ago
Right.
or something.
About Kane and such.
Yeah. So I mean, look, the personal stuff notwithstanding, like I would love for Kane to get his act together, but and not to sound cold hearted, I don't care. Like, that's his personal stuff.
Right.
I wouldn't want Kane to publicly come out and put out together a YouTube video that says, "Hey, let's talk about AJ's weird obsession with making hockey jerseys." Like he doesn't need to have an opinion on my personal stuff. I don't need to have an opinion on his. Obviously, it just comes down to the gambling thing.
Right.
And we'll all wait and see. We're not going to speculate, but we'll all wait and see if the NHL finds any type of evidence that would prove that he did that. And then, of course, if it does, you're gone. But if it doesn't come out, if there's no evidence found and he's cleared of those accusations, well, then what? Then so what? We just put Kane back in the room, and I mean, because if you're found innocent, you're found innocent, but there still seems to be a lot of smoke surrounding him. There must be a little bit of fire. If you're hearing from multiple people that he's not the most well-liked guy in the room, I mean, how many? My question is, how does Doug Wilson address the media and honestly say, yes, we've addressed our culture?
That's the big question.
Yeah, in the exit interview, Logan Couture was straight asked. There has been a lot of questions about the culture of this room over the last 2 seasons. Did it get, did you notice a change? Did it improve? And Couture, one word answer, no.
And that's the thing. And that's your captain saying that.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's look, you can bring all the Boninos and Coglianos and guys that have sterling reputations into the room, but that's like adding I don't mean to be crass, but
right.
it's kind of like, well, here, let's add this Dom Perignon and filet mignon to this pile of shit. And that'll make the shit better.
The irony that you mentioned, holding a glass of wine when, Evander Kane posted that on Instagram, which caused everybody to go off.
With Dom Perignon is champagne. But anyway.
Oh, well, whatever. You know what I meant. You're using a fancy glass, not like this.
There you go. But I just have to wonder where this team is going to be in a month, in 2 months.
Right.
And what happens if they have another slow start? What if after 20 games they're, say, 6-14 or something? We've already, heard that one of the reasons why Doug Wilson won't say the word rebuild is because it's the impact that it will have on ticket sales.
Well, it's obvious though. I mean, the Giants.
The attendance has already been dwindling.
But here's the thing: October 16th is opening night. You have one game, and then you're on the road.
Mm-hmm.
That right there, I don't know the Niners' schedule, but October 16th might be a playoff game for the San Francisco Giants. The Niners, I don't remember offhand what they're playing, but the Niners actually have a bye that week, so that kind of works out there.
I don't know that. But dude, hockey fans, Sharks fans, hockey fans, at the very least, they're gonna go to opening night. We know that there's gonna be some sort of giveaway. Now, will it be the Hertl giveaway, the bobblehead that every fan was supposed to get at the end of the 2019 season, or I'm sorry,
1920.
in April of 2020? We'll see. But look, the Giants, and I hate to keep making the reference, but look, the Giants, since what, I don't know, middle of May, end of May, somewhere in there. Either way, the Giants have been the top team in Major League Baseball for like the last 3 months. I mean, the best in the league, best record. And I don't know about you, I watch those games. They're nowhere near sellouts. Now, of course, some of that, look, COVID, man. There are people that are still being careful, taking precautions.
Oh, yeah.
And I respect that. I'm totally get it. I feel like you'll probably see the same thing with the Sharks with hockey season. Mm-hmm. It's despite requiring everybody to be double vaxxed and have that clear pass. I get that. Right now, though, would I bet on opening night being a sellout? Not even close.
And
to quote Erik Karlsson.
Right. Wait, sorry, you forgot.
Yeah.
Not even close. Yeah. No.
And I got to tell you, I'm actually going to be this is going to be the first opening night that I miss for the Sharks in maybe like 10 years, because I'm actually going to be out of town that weekend.
Okay, that kind of changes plans for opening night. All right.
A little bit.
Just a scotch, bud.
I just realized. No, I'm like, oh crap! I have tickets for a show, and I'm going to be in Reno. So
if you're able to get to Reno.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that also may be a tentative plan for right now, but I don't know. let's see. How long is that first road trip? Was that like 6 games?
Yeah, yeah. Let me pull it up here. I think it's like a 6 game
Five.
road. Yeah,
Five.
5.
Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Boston, Nashville. What's to say they come back after that 5 game trip? What now? Look at Montreal. I think we can say that. I think we can all confidently say that Montreal was a little bit of an aberration last playoffs.
Oh,
Like a little got a little lucky. No one is predicting them to even make the playoffs this coming season. So maybe you got a shot there.
right.
Ottawa, if you don't think that Ottawa wants to come out and level, they want to sit there and watch Stutzla and Norris, and those guys probably want to make a statement and be like, yeah, F that
Right.
Carlson guy. Toronto, I would say is a better team. Boston, definitely. I mean, maybe, I think, okay, the Sharks have a shot beating Nashville, but you look at those first 6 games coming back from that road trip. If they were to go 3-3, I think we'd all be pleasantly surprised.
Right.
But what if the trip goes horribly?
What if they come back home to take on Montreal and they're winless?
Which could very well happen. And I think I'd mentioned this before at some point, but the schedule does no favors for the Sharks because
All season.
if they get, if they dig themselves an early hole, which it seems like they've done historically over the last couple seasons, if they dig that early hole through the first 41, you look at the back half of the 41, that's where the majority of their divisional games come in. So those you're talking 4-point swings.
Big time.
It does them no favors.
I mean, it could be like the Cow Palace. I hate to say it like this because I can't even think of it being in Cow Palace like, but if they start out bad early on, it could be bleak. I mean, now granted, Cow Palace days those games were sold out.
Well, yeah.
Everybody's
honeymoon periods are fantastic.
Yes, but I mean, I don't think we've ever seen attendance as bad as it was until like right before COVID hit. And like you mentioned, the Giants, they're not exactly selling out the place. I think Saturday will be their first sellout of the year for Giants-Dodgers.
They were doing like buy one, get one free ticket promotions.
Exactly. I mean, for a team that's been the best team in baseball,
Yeah,
I mean,
literally what I said.
But I'm making A's have always had a rough attendance, and my God, they need the ballpark so badly. Went to the Quakes game like not even a month ago, and it's not filled up. I think there were more people hanging out at the largest outdoor bar in North America than there were in the stands. I mean, yeah, people are still concerned about COVID. They're not going out and doing everything just yet.
Yeah,
throw in all the restrictions that are going to hit, city-owned buildings in San Jose starting September 20th.
Well, I could see SAP on opening night like 12,000. I could see that, but you've got people that are taking precautions. They're just like, look, I loves me some hockey, but I'm not comfortable going into a building quite yet with that many people, even if they're all required to be double vaxxed. That's one concern. The other concern I think that needs to be kind of called out is, look, everybody was forced to stay home for a long period of time. Who's to say how many of those people said, hey, you know what? My bank account's a bit bigger now that I'm not spending a whole bunch of money on sports, and instead I spent that money on an 80-inch flat screen, and the home version is pretty nice.
Right.
We kind of dig this. So I think they have to worry a little bit about that. But, there just doesn't seem to be a lot of optimism surrounding this team.
And it does, outside of us, Shang, Kurz, and a couple other places, who's talking about the Sharks?
Exactly. Well, in any way of a glass half full way, what was it, NHL Tonight the other day, weren't they saying, you're like, oh, so this is what Hertl would likely get on the, like, hey, Boston's got an opening now that Krejci's gone. So, I mean, they were looking at stuff like that. It's,
Oh,
you have to, we talked about this before, but you have to give it up that confidence from fans in the front office. The Sharks, just a few weeks ago in The Athletic, were rated 31 out of 32 teams. It's an amazing...
Only Buffalo.
Yeah, but it's an amazing effort to be rated lower than a team that literally lost their draft picks because they did some hinky shit.
And literally has no place to go for next season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, how do you suck worse than that? I mean... Jeez. I mean, we can sit here and play the glass half full and say, well, look, there's still talent on this team. What if Kane is able to, like, boy, if you thought the adversity he dealt with last season brought out the best of him, well, I mean, challenge accepted. Maybe he scores 40 next season. Who knows? He was certainly on a great tear. But what happens if Timo bounces back? What happens if Hertl has a full healthy season? After that bout with the Rona, he came back. He was, I would say, the best player the team had for the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. What if Couture has a solid season? What if Erik Karlsson finally turns out to be, shows up and is the player that we've all been, holding the receipt for?
Right.
What if Vlasic turns it around? But that's the thing. There's a lot of what ifs here. And again, what if through the first 20 games, this team is 7th out of 8th and things aren't looking good? The power play still sucks. And, because remember last season, the one thing they could hang their hat on was they had an insanely fantastic penalty kill. Well, what if that doesn't work? I mean, you can play the what if game.
Oh yeah,
all day long.
It's a great game to play. I mean, you can be. I'll go full. I'll go glass half full. What happens if this team gets off to a good start? They shored up the goaltending with Reimer and Hill. Couture's back, like you said. Karlsson's back. Hertl gets things going. Like Patrick Tyler is saying, if Hertl bounces back, they really need to trade him. Or do you not, because you need to keep butts in the seats? I mean, that right there, I think will be the interesting thing that happens down the road when we get to trade deadline.
Yeah, but you know what puts butts in the seats more than anything? Winning.
Duh.
So I don't think it comes down to a particular player.
No, but I mean, if certain players are performing like amazing, like let's say Hertl is like 30 goals at All-Star break, and he's already going to go to the Czech national team for the Olympics.
Honestly, if let's say that the team is in the top 4 of the division, like they're being competitive. Mm-hmm. So you're telling me there's a chance. If Hertl is the one leading the way, I got to be honest.
That's a tough call.
Well, when you look at the roadmap that this team is on right now in Cap Friendly, I make that move. Like Hertl, his value would never be higher. I make the move. Right now this team needs to be a future team. It's not a right now team. So let's look at the future.
But the thing is that it's set up to be a right now team. That's the catch. You don't with Karlsson, with Kane.
With an unproven goal. Okay, so you've got a shell of his former self defenseman.
Yep.
You've Brent Burns, who didn't have a great season last year, but he was also asked to perform a little differently than maybe recently. You've got Vlasic, who's clearly on the downward,
sharp downward.
Yeah, there's and you have an unproven goalie tandem. We could see Aiden Hill be like, I'm here to get that Vezina. I mean, that would be outstanding. That would be
Right.
great. And sure, but I don't know. You try to take in all the factors right now, and for me, the roadmap does not point to a team that is going to do anything remarkable this season. It's one thing to put a team together that can make the playoffs. It's something different to have a team that can go deep in the playoffs.
And that's the other thing too, is that you look at Montreal dangle that tease like, "Ooh, we just snuck in, we can get in there." The Sharks saw it years ago with LA in 2014. You know, that's exactly what DW is kind of looking at it. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, and like I said when I talked to Brody like a few weeks ago, it's like you see the pieces in place now for the future, but let's not rush it. We learned that from Mirko Mueller. We learned that from other other players that weren't ready yet. I mean, Chekovic, off to the KHL. Goldobin never really panned out. And the other part too, though, AJ, trading another first round draft pick, whether it's Hertl or even Timo Meyer, like we heard at the draft. I mean, that's got to be demoralizing a little bit too. That you can't develop anything big.
Yeah, that
I mean,
that
don't.
part
I'm.
does gotta suck.
I mean,
But I kind of go back to Vlasic's thing, where it's like, if we don't make the playoffs this season, shit's gonna explode. Now, I also kind of wonder, and okay, let me play the role of Curtis Brown for a second and go full on, Pollyanna optimist.
oh boy, here we go. This should
Look,
be fun.
well, let's take into consideration the last two seasons that the Sharks have started. 2 seasons ago, what happened? Yeah, you had your normal camp and everything, but by December, your head coach is canned. And Bugner is installed, or I guess promoted, depending on your point of view.
Right.
And the numbers remained largely the same. Like, I think the winning percentage was almost identical. I think the special teams numbers were very close. The goaltending numbers didn't change. So, look, that's you're not starting off great. Not to mention the fact that he didn't have his own coaching squad. It was like, yeah, take over all these guys. And then what happens the following year? The Rona hits, and it's like, okay, so we got to spend a month in Arizona. 14 to 16 are on the road. It's just a terrible way to try to start things. So at least this year, I would say you have to give Bugner the opportunity to have his own camp with his full coaching staff. No one's, waiting 6 months to get a goddamn passport to get over the border. You've got all the pieces in place, but I wonder if Vlasic was kind of alluding to with his comments about things being blown up is that this is Bugner's last year of his 3-year deal. So it's, a case of, well, if things don't go well, hey, there's a scapegoat on the bench. Let's point at him. Certainly a lot of fans have, saying that, Bugner is PDB light. He's, he really hasn't changed anything. Again, I point to the fact that, well, for the first season, he had a makeshift staff. For last season, he had let me use the phrase that everybody with the Sharks use, an unprecedented season, an unprecedented circle of events. But this team, they got to get off to a good start, or I think I think we could see changes sooner rather than later. Yeah. Maybe people start going to cover your ass mode.
Well, and
I don't know.
I mean, like you said before, I think when we were on when PDB got fired, how many times does Doug Wilson get a chance to fire a head coach, if that's the case?
Yeah.
I mean, something's got to give there. I mean, Hasso has to pay attention to his team. I get that he's in Germany. He might be stuck in Germany right now. I know the EU's already, took the U.S. off of safe places to travel, so it's going to be a lot done remotely.
For all we know, the Sharks are a line item on a spreadsheet on Hasso's desk. We don't know. Now, Wilson says he's in constant contact with him, and Hasso's very invested and interested in the happenings of the team, and he wants to win. And I think you could say there's evidence to that, the fact that he's willing to sink so much money into maintaining and doing things with SAP Center, spending to the cap,
Right.
giving Wilson that freedom. Now, Wilson, of course, is going to be the people that want to, burn him in effigy and get rid of this guy right fucking now. But there's a lot of people that sit there and he's just not the guy. We need to get rid of him. He can't win the cup. And it's kind of like, well, he's putting together the team. Like, is it Doug Wilson's fault that Hertl got injured in the Stanley Cup run? Is it Wilson's fault, the injuries that occurred against St. Louis in 2019?
Is it Wilson's fault that he doesn't have like maybe an extra $8.5 million cap space because of COVID? Let's be honest here. Jerk even projected it on Technologists like a year or two ago that we'd probably be around $100 million cap right now. And if that's the case, this team is way more competitive than it is and can take its time on developing like John Leonard or William Eklund to have them in place to take over for guys like Hertl and Couture and Kane if you're able to get out of the Kane's contract.
I think that's a fair point, but I think it also needs to be noted that, well, every team is dealing with that. It's not just the Sharks.
Sure, but I think DW was more than anything banking on the cap space going higher and higher. When he signed Burns to that 8-year deal, he explained that, there's more cap room coming, folks.
Well, here's my other question. Looking at the cap, where it is, you look at cap friendly. How do you not trade Hertl?
And that's the point. But at the same time, I mean,
it's just
he's in his prime right now,
dude. Yeah, I know, but it's we know that Wilson's going to bend over Ferraro for his RFA deal. We know that's going to happen, but that's still more money. And yeah, okay, you're going to free up some cash. I would imagine Dylan Gambrell not on this team next season, so that's going to free up $1 million. Who knows if Cogliano is, there's a couple pieces, but we're talking, Hertl's agent would be a moron if he doesn't at the minimum ask for the Kane deal. I want 7x7 minimum. Now Hertl has already, and this is something that I think is going to stick in Wilson's craw, but if the comments that I've seen are proven to be true, Hertl is evidently willing to take like the Landeskog deal. Like he's like, no, I'm willing to take less money at a place that wants to win.
Right.
So that's got to be like, yikes.
And that's the scary part.
But that's the sign of a kid who wants to win a cup. He's driven to win a cup. Look, Jesus, look at Joe Thornton. I mean, he's just like, hey, I'll take the minimum. Just give me a chance, man. I don't care. I made all my money. Hertl, he could go to Boston and be like, you know what? I look around here. I think the right pieces are in place. Yeah, 5x5 sounds good.
Yeah. No, sure. You look in Boston's a great example. I mean, look at Patrice Bergeron's deal. Look at some of the deals that they have. I mean, they're nowhere near to overpaying anybody, but they're a team that's always in like the top 10 of roster spot or of paying. I mean, looking at cap friendly on Bergeron, 6.875 for Bergeron. Pasternak is locked up for 6 and 6.67 for a while. Brad Marchand 6.125. Taylor Hall 6 million. Charlie Coyle 5.25 million.
No, they've made fantastic deals. And Ian pointing out in the chat that it is Wilson's fault that Kane is here forever.
Yep.
And as well Erik Karlsson. And Logan Couture. I mean, he signed these huge deals. I'd still like to know what happened to the Wilson that was never longer than 5 years on his deals. What changed? I don't know. Now, maybe he looked at the deal that he got Vlasic on for so long, which was considered by most to be a gross underpayment,
Right.
and now you're paying the other half of that. I feel like there's just so much uncertainty, and Doug Wilson. To be fair, the guy had, for 15 years did an amazing job, but maybe it's time for, a different point of view. But we always have to go back to the point that, well, no, it doesn't matter who comes in here. They still have to deal with the same contracts.
Exactly.
Why is it that one GM is going to be able to move Erik Karlsson or Vlasic or Couture, but Wilson can't? And maybe it's a case of sometimes these GMs, and I think to a certain extent you might be able to make the argument that Wilson sometimes falls in love with his own players.
Yes, he has fallen in love with some of his own players. But but now the recent track record, though, he's let Pavs go. He's okay letting.
And how'd that work out?
Yeah, exactly.
But bringing back Marlowe, I don't know that was the best thing to do. Granted, it's nice to have that record in a Sharks jersey. I get that, but look, let's get back to that Bill Walsh point of view, man. Get rid of a guy a year too soon rather than a year too late.
But it goes to show you, though, that nobody was ready from the Barracuda. And that's a major, major red flag. Well, now you kind of developed up the talent
players that were there. I mean, yeah, you can sit there and say that the development side, and you can throw some blame on Sommer and all those, but it all starts with garbage in, garbage out. If you don't get a solid somebody that you can coach and develop and all those things, talent's going to rise to the top. LeBanc, 6th rounder, Pavelski, like bottom of the barrel, and yet look at what they became. Meanwhile, you can use names like Petrecki and Wren and Doherty and Mueller and Goldobin. So but I see, and that goes back to my earlier point. I think those issues have been rectified. Doug Wilson Jr., since being given the reins, it feels like there's definitely a bit more there to work with. I'm excited to see what we have in the Sharks in 5 years. But Patrick Tyler, mentioning that, look, Vlasic and Jones got those deals when it had to, at the time they were worth it. They've aged horribly. And that happens just like like I mentioned earlier with the Vlasic deal. The first one was, wow, what a steal. What value you were getting. And that's the thing. That's the problem right now. The return on investment that the Sharks are getting from their players is horrible. You need guys to at least play to their contracts. You hope that you're gonna get some pieces here and there from a Ferraro or a Balsas or a Barabanov that are playing above their contract for the time being. But let's see if Barabanov can continue the pace that he's ended the season with. Let's see if Balsas can be consistent as well. I think we all have every confidence in Ferraro that he's just solid dude, gets it done. Future captain.
I mean, and that's the other thing. You have to figure out when you're going to get him signed. Because I could
RFA,
see
dude, he's going to get bent over. He's going to get bent over for the RFA because that's Wilson. That's all we'll do. Dude, I guarantee you, Ian will do 20 minutes on the next teal tinted glasses this Thursday.
This coming Thursday,
and I guarantee you, Ian's going to do 20 minutes on all the players that have been thrown into the dentist chair when they were RFA.
Yeah. Or do we get that crazy offer sheet?
No, I'm not worried about Ferraro. I just look at it. It's that every little brick, it just builds the wall of money, and you're gonna have to give Ferraro more cash. You're going to have to give some of these guys more cash, but at the very least, Hertl for me is at minimum, bare minimum would be the Kane deal.
Yeah.
Bare minimum. And where does that money come from?
Right. And that's a big one, especially like you said, with Ferraro on the horizon as well.
Yeah. And for all we know, both Hertl and the Sharks are biding their time. They're saying, let's get 30 games into this. Let's see where everything is at. Is Kane an issue whatsoever? Are we seeing any fractures in the dressing room? We've mentioned it before that Kane could get into some sort of brouhaha, to, if I can invoke a little French, but he would get into some sort of melee, and you didn't exactly see other Sharks on the ice making their best efforts to get over there and support him. So do we see this team kind of circle the wagons and say, us against the world? Or do we see the fractures that we've heard about for the last few years, where it's Jones said we went into different directions. Vlasic said we're not on the same page. There was no cohesion. Mm-hmm. So do we see a continuation of that? And okay, you added a couple pieces, but is that, the head of the snake, for lack of a better term, is still there. It's still the leadership group. It's still the same. It's still Couture. It's still Kane. It's still Carlson. It's still Burns. You haven't, brought in some huge name aside. Well, I mean, Carlson to a lesser extent, but it's, the Pavelski and Thornton are gone. I just don't think, as great as Bonino and Cogliano are, okay, they're cagey vets, but are they going to make that big of a difference when it's still Couture's team?
And that's the thing. It's Couture's team, but I think he needs some help. And that's where Bonito and Cogliano could help him, as opposed to rotating in kids that didn't look like they were ready yet. And this gives time for John Leonard to be better. This gives time for William Eklund to not having to rush and play on the third line. I mean,
I also kind of question the idea of giving out 4 A's. It's almost, too many cooks in the kitchen kind of an idea.
The thing is the Sharks have done that before.
I don't care. I still question the idea. Again, the too many cooks in the kitchen can spoil, what you're making. Everybody has their own idea of it, and when you've got too many people pulling in different directions, you go nowhere.
True, but I mean, whether they have an extra thing on their sweater or not, there's always a leadership. I mean, and Patrick Tyler saying, "Come on, it's bones and cogs. Get it right, AJ."
Dude, no, I invented that term. I take full credit for that.
But I mean, the Sharks have always had alternate captains all over the place. Clough was one on the road. Marchment was one at home or on the road. I mean, there's always
you can lead without a letter.
Exactly. That's my point. Is that there are a number of guys that need to get it together, and one person, and this is where I think your point comes in. One person needs to step up and get it done.
Yeah, but my point is,
or the whole group needs to come together. #Teal together.
It's that you don't. Letters, you don't need to hand them out to everybody, because it's that whole thing of when everybody's special, then no one is. I think it's too much. It's just, look, if Couture's your captain, fine. Who are your A's? If it's me, if I'm making the call, I'm saying Burns and
Ferraro. Or is it
No. I think if Ferraro got an A and Carlson didn't, I think Carlson would lose his mind.
Cool. We can move $11.5 million out of here.
Yeah, maybe that's the plan.
Right.
Yeah, no, honestly, it's Burns or Couture with the C. It's Burns, and honestly, maybe Vlasic, but again, Vlasic just strikes me as this. I don't care about letters; they mean nothing to
No.
me. Um,
He'll be a
you
leader
know,
without a letter. He's been like that before.
I honestly, I think he's just a very zero fucks giving kind of guy.
Which is
I
crazy
guess,
as to how he was when he got to this team. He was just the quietest thing. I remember Craig Gervais saying, he's like, "Oh man, has anybody talked to Pickles? I haven't heard him say anything in the last 3 weeks."
yeah, you don't care. Um, I mean, Couture, Burns, and I guess you by default you have to go with Carlson.
All right.
Um, let's see how that works out for you, I suppose. I don't know. I mean, or maybe you go off the beaten path and say, no, we're forging a new, way, and it's going to be Couture, Burns, and Bonino, you know, or Cogliano.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that'll ever happen. I think they're just gonna, this team. If this team has proven anything, it's like they sometimes they will just try to keep the status quo, no matter how bad the things look on the horizon if they continue down that path. But again, that's just one more little peccadillo. Uh, it,
I got
and look,
words. They're the
it's
best words.
well, and it's not as if this team doesn't have a history of stripping a player of their captaincy. So I mean, was there another team ever in history that literally, I mean, in 2016, wasn't there literally 3 captains on the team
Yeah.
in Pavelski, Marlowe, and Thornton?
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. It's, it's not as if there's not a precedent set, but, what if they were to strip Couture? Again, I think again, it's that case of, well, you can strip the C. Well, then, okay, fine. And then it's, well,
But how
okay,
many
that
times are
didn't
you going
work.
to do
Fire
that?
the coach. Okay, well, that didn't work. Okay, well, get new goaltenders. Okay, that didn't work. It's, what have we not done in the last 15 years? Well, we haven't fired the GM. And again, though, I think Hossa is a Wilson believer. I think he's just going to give him. I mean, and to be fair, Wilson did build up a lot of equity,
Right.
a lot of good faith equity, and that record speaks for itself. Those first 15 years, and that's what a lot of Wilson defenders will point to is, look, he all that time he only missed the playoffs 3 years during his tenure, and it's like, okay, yeah, 3 years. 2 of them were these last 2 years,
Right.
though.
Three out
You
of the
know,
last, what, 6 now?
Yeah, 3 out of the last 6. So when you look at it, from that point of view, I mean, I don't want to get all Obi-Wan and so, well, things change when you look at it from a certain point of view. I mean, but if they do miss this coming season, and all indicators are they are, I mean, you look at the Vegas odds, all the quote unquote experts, because who didn't have Montreal in the Stanley Cup final? But look, it's again, let's see what happens at camp. Let's see what things look like, the body language, what things are said in those first media calls next month. See how camp goes. See how this team performs on opening night and those first 5 games on the road trip. Let's see if that trip maybe helps bring the group together. Who knows? And then let's see what things look like through the first 20 games, the first quarter pole of the season.
Which is always
You've
the
got,
check spot by American Thanksgiving.
yeah. So, I mean, yeah, you've got some games that you look on here and you go, New Jersey, got to feel somewhat good about that. Buffalo, absolutely.
Calgary.
Yeah, I can see that. But then you look at Colorado and Minnesota and St. Louis and Washington and Carolina, and you go, fucking yikes.
Seattle's up in the air. That's not a set in stone. We saw that with Vegas. But
Right?
they're not a
But
sure thing like Vegas was their first year.
Vegas wasn't a sure thing their first year. It just happened.
Right.
But 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I optimistically, I have the Sharks winning. Whether it's overtime or regulation, I have the Sharks penciled in winning 9 of the first 20. And that's me trying to be optimistic.
Gets you at
But
500. I mean, you're hanging around competing for it right now.
but what if you
That's
okay,
the
so
case.
you play 500 hockey. How many points do you have at the end of the season?
82. That won't get you in.
Exactly
It
my
could
point.
take you. It's got to get at least 95. I think is
Yeah.
roughly,
But that's my
depending on.
point.
But that varies.
Yeah, but 500 hockey, if you're at 500 through the first 20 games and that's like the projection you're on, ain't going to get it done, son. So then what happens? So anyway,
Yep.
and I feel as though once again I've spoken way too long.
We'll tell our affiliates we are going long, but good to have you chatting with us on craziness.
Well, Jerk won't talk to me anymore, so I got to do something.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
it
glad you
happens.
can put it up with me. I can mention Atakusa again if that helps.
No, he won't. No, for some reason he doesn't want to talk to me during the months of July, August, and September.
Wow, how rude. Well,
No hockey. No hockey. No talkie.
well, I appreciate you coming to help out and everything. But in case you missed anything or you want to watch this again, check us out on tealtownusa.com or your favorite podcatcher, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. It really does help us out. SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and always available at tealtownusa.com. So I'll steal a line from you from the Pucknologist. Famous last words, good sir.
I'm trying to be optimistic. I really am, but it's very much a wait and see kind of game. I just don't know at this point. None of us do. So I think if we've learned anything over the last week or so, it's probably stay away from aggregators that are just trying to stir the pot and get clicks. I think that's what we've learned. You'll notice that Teal Town is like the one account that has like not dove down the well on a lot of this stuff, but just, and you know what? Don't take the red pill right now. Just enjoy the blue pill. For those of you waiting for the Matrix to return.
I was going to say, if it lasts longer than 4 hours, consult a physician.
No. We're talking Matrix.
You said blue pill. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, the red pill versus the blue pill. Just take the one that you can just sit there in the Matrix and be happy. And this is fine. This is all fine. Just enjoy the blue pill, so to speak.
And with that, thank you very much for watching. I'm at PuckGuy14 on the Twitter and the Instagram. He's at AJ_Strong on the Twitter and the Instagram. If you haven't already, wish him a happy birthday on the social medias. Well, happy belated birthday, I should say.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Yes.
And I should have 3 new jerseys to feature by tonight. So you might want to go check that Instagram.
Yeah. And they look pretty crisp. So So teal tinted glasses will be on Thursday night. We'll let you know when that happens. But until then, keep it real, keep it teal, keep it real teal. Have a great day, everyone. Good news. The NHL is going to the Olympics. Bad news. Well, the Sharks are
going to hell in a handbasket.
He said it, not me. Have a great day, everyone.